Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to the channel. So I was going through the comments on one of my recent videos and I noticed that two viewers were going back and forth in a somewhat heated debate about Michkov versus Demidov, and that got me thinking, why not make a video comparing these two talents head to head? So today, we're diving deep. We'll break down their profiles, their stats, look at their production over the years across different leagues and tournaments, analyze their play style, strength, weaknesses, and even maybe spot an area of concern and try to make a projection out of all that. And by the end, we're going to see who really edges out as the better player, or at least who I think takes the crown. So let's get into it. So let's start by breaking down their physical profiles, and Demidov came at the Russian Combine just before the draft, standing at 6'1" and weighing in at 192 pounds, while Michkov's latest measurements have him at 5'10" and 176 pounds. They both play as wingers and they're both left-handed shooters. While I don't think Michkov's smaller frame will be a major drawback for him because of his playstyle, Demidov clearly has the advantage with extra height and extra bulk, so when it comes to the physical side of things, Demidov definitely gets the edge here. So, comparing stats for players who didn't play in the same tournaments or leagues during their draft year can be a little bit tricky, but let's give it a go, starting with their draft -2 seasons. So, at 16, Demidov scored 21 points in 25 games in the MHL, putting up 0.84 points per game average while playing for both the A team and the B team in the SKA St. Petersburg system. Solid numbers, no doubt, especially considering the competition. Now, Michkov at 16 was just on another level. He got 56 points in 56 games, including 38 goals, giving him a 1.00 point per games. That's basically one of the best, if not the best, draft -2 season ever. On top of that, he went to the U18 World Championship and put up 16 points, including 12 goals in just 7 games. That's outscoring Connor Bedard and being named the MVP of the tournament. Demidov didn't get a chance to play at the U18s because Russia was banned from international competition, but even if he had, it's hard to imagine him matching the numbers of Michkov. He did play in the Helinka Gretzky Cup though, alongside Michkov, but his 5 points in 5 games, while good, just doesn't compare to what Michkov did. So at this point, it's pretty clear that Michkov has the edge, both in terms of production and big game performance in their draft -2 season. And the same story pretty much repeats itself in their draft -1 season. Michkov had an insane draft -1 season, setting up the record for the best in MHL history with 51 points in 28 games. Even more impressive, he averaged over a goal per game with 30 goals, giving him a ridiculous 1.82 points per game in the MHL. Demidov, while not quite reaching Michkov's numbers, still had the second best D-1 season ever in the MHL, putting up 64 points in 44 games for 1.45 points per game. So, yeah, there's a bit of a gap between them, but we're still talking about the top 2 season ever in the league, which is no small feat. Both got some KHL time as well, but they didn't play enough game at that level to really draw in any major conclusion from it. And to wrap up the stats comparison, let's look at their draft year, and this is where it gets really tricky. Michkov played a lot in the KHL while Demidov didn't get the same exposure at that level. One thing we can note though is that Demidov had a great camp and preseason for SKA last year, earning the spot on the team over Michkov. However, Michkov ended up playing 27 KHL games where he scored 20 points and also played 12 games in the VHL, putting up 14 points. For the 3rd year in a row, he's setting up records and has solidified himself as the most productive draft-eligible player in the KHL history. On the other hand, Demidov did something quite similar at the MHL level, becoming the most productive draft-eligible player in that league history with 60 points in 30 games. If you break it down, some data would suggest that one MHL point is worth approximately 30 to 35% of a KHL point. Using that as a rough guideline, their overall production would look pretty much similar, but of course, you can't really rely too heavily on that math. There are so many factors like team strength and roles and opposition and play style that just don't translate between leagues. So while it may seem like Demidov's number don't quite stack up with Michkov, let's not forget who we're talking about and who we're comparing him with. Michkov has been setting up records his entire life and has outperformed players like Connor Bedard in tournaments. What Demidov has done is still extremely impressive. It's just tough to compare when Michkov has been playing on another level. This is where things starts to really diverge between Demidov and Michkov. Both are extremely skilled players, but their style are quite different. So let's start with their skating. It's pretty clear this is an area where both could use some improvement. Neither is a particularly strong skater, and I'd say they're both about average or project to be about average. Between the two, Demidov is the more agile and powerful and elusive skater. He's more dynamic and tends to be faster over long distances, which makes him more effective in open ice and in transition. On the other hand, Michkov is quicker in short bursts and probably more methodical with his movement. He's also better at rolling off the pressure along the board, using his balance and positioning to escape tight spots. I don't think skating will be a big issue for either of them because they're both way too smart and talented for it to hold them back. That said, refining their stride would definitely help them reach their full potential. For Demidov though, I'm not entirely sure how his 10-2 stride and wide stance will translate to the NHL level. It might be something he needs to tone down a bit to be more effective. Offensively, this is where Demidov and Michkov really set themselves apart. Michkov is known as a pure goal scorer and he's hands down the best goal scoring prospect in the world right now, but it's important to remember he's also an excellent playmaker, and as he starts playing with more talented teammates, I'm convinced his assist number will skyrocket. Michkov is a very methodical playmaker who advances the puck closer to the net with every inch he's given, but always in a controlled and calculated way. It's no secret that Michkov loves to shoot. His goals total speaks for themselves, but he's also a master of deception. He's great at hiding his intention using his hands and body language to trick defenders and goalies. Think of Kucherov, the way Michkov controls the flow of the offense, rarely pulling himself into vulnerable spots while owning the space on the ice. It's a very strategic style of hockey. Demidov, on the other hand, is much more direct and aggressive. He attacks space with pace, often putting himself in vulnerable situations shift after shift, relying on his hands and vision to create plays and find seams for passes. Unlike Michkov, who manipulates defender more systematically, Demidov goes right at them, forcing them to react, drawing them on himself and pulling them out of position. Demidov constantly cuts inside and doesn't just take what's given to him, he takes more. If you give him an inch, he's taking 3 feet. Any hesitation or mistake from a defender and he makes them pay. So while he's not as prolific a goal scorer as Michkov, Demidov has a solid shot, incredible hands in tight spaces, and a knack for finding soft spots on the ice after dishing out a pass. His vision is probably the best outside of the NHL, and he makes impossible passes look completely easy. Plus, he's likely the best rush attacker outside of the NHL also, gaining the zone with control almost every time he's on a rush. And let's not forget how relentlessly he attacks the net and the inside. He doesn't need any lesson on where goals are scored at the NHL level. The middle third of the ice is his home. While I personally find Demidov's style more exciting, it's fast-paced, it's aggressive, it's beautiful to watch. I also recognize that Michkov's more methodical approach is just as effective and comes with fewer turnovers and less risk for his own health. That said, when it comes to play style, I'd give the edge to Demidov. So defense probably won't be a big part of either Michkov's or Demidov's game, but it's worth mentioning, especially since Michkov defense have been a frequent topic. Is Michkov interested in playing defense? Not really. Will he eventually mature in that area? Probably, or maybe. Look at Kucherov. He wasn't interested in defense for a long time, but as he matured, he started putting in some effort, even if it didn't lead to amazing results. I think we can expect a similar path for Michkov. He may never become a defensive specialist, but he'll likely get to a point where he does just enough to stay responsible on the ice. Demidov, on the other hand, seems to put more effort defensively. He battles harder for pucks and doesn't just hang back at the blue line waiting for an early exit. Michkov, on the other hand, sometimes cheats even when the other team has the puck deep in his zone. It's rare to see that type of behavior, but maybe it's part of a strategy to squeeze every bit of offense out of him. Still, he'll need to clean that up, especially if he's playing under a coach like Tortorella who won't let that slide. That said, neither the Flyers nor the Canadiens drafted Michkov or Demidov for their defensive abilities. Both teams want to maximize their offensive output, even if that comes with some sacrifices on defense. But in this comparison, I'd give the edge to Demidov. While Michkov is unlikely to ever match Demidov's effort level defensively, it's something I personally don't put a lot of weight on in that case. So in terms of character, both players are highly competitive and driven to be great. They bring that competitive edge to the ice, though their styles and personalities are kind of different. Michkov is definitely competitive, though I wouldn't say he matches Demidov's intensity on the ice, but he's shown some frustration in the locker room, mostly due to teammates not putting in the effort. It's probably not the best way to handle things, but it does show he's got a strong desire to win. Ultimately, you want players with that type of fire. Nobody wants to end up like the Buffalo Sabres. I'm sorry. From what I've heard though, Brière mentioned Michkov was all smile and fun in the locker room, so there's a positive side too. Demidov, on the other hand, seems to have the same type of level of fire, but comes off a bit more laid back personally. He hasn't had any locker room issues, didn't snub teams at the draft, and consistently compete hard on 200 foot every single night. Given that Demidov doesn't have the same concern about character and shows strong competitiveness on and off the ice, he gets the edge here. Michkov's character could be a concern, but if he matures and remains a good teammate, it might turn out to be minor issues in the end. So to wrap things up, Demidov edges out Michkov in terms of size, skating, playstyle, defense, character, and compete level. Some of these aspects like playstyle and skating are subjective, and character is less of a big deal if Michkov matures well. But for now, the clear categories are size, defense, and compete. When it comes to skill level, both players are very close but have a different skill set. Michkov has the edge in hockey sense and shooting. Both are elite for him, whereas Demidov has high-end hockey sense and above-average shot. Demidov shines in puck handling with an elite grade, while Michkov is high-end. Demidov also gets the nod for compete level with an above-average grade compared to Michkov's average. For passing, Demidov gets an 8.5 versus a 8 for Michkov. So skill-wise, they're neck and neck, with Demidov having elite skills and high-end hockey sense, and Michkov having elite hockey sense and high-end skills. Pick your poison. The real standout difference is in the stats. Michkov clearly wins here. He set records in his draft -2, his draft -1, his draft year, and his draft +1 season across different leagues. That's 4 years straight of record-breaking production in 3 different leagues, which is pretty remarkable. Given the huge gap in production, I have to give the win to Michkov. The difference is just too significant. When I did my scouting report on Michkov last year, I mentioned that at his peak, he might match Bedard's production, and I still believe that. Many scouts have said that he's on the same level as Bedard in terms of skills and scoring ability, and would have been in the mix for first overall if he was North American player without a contract issue. While I'm not sure about that last part, he was definitely in the conversation before Bedard's playmaking breakthrough. Demidov has a safer projection and a very high ceiling, but Michkov's ceiling is even higher, though less certain. For me, Michkov always had the edge. To borrow a quote from my next video, Michkov is like Kucherov, while Demidov is more like a Kaprizov. Both are elite NHL players, but Kucherov is Kucherov, whether you like him or not. Hope you enjoyed this breakdown. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.